So we know the Xenomorph, right? The alien in the Aliens franchise? Well, I'm just gonna come out and say it. This, right here, is probably the best alien design we'll ever see. I really mean it. Out of the thousands of cool sci-fi aliens, I think this is pretty definitively the best. Every part of the design is familiar, but completely distinct at the same time. It has many similarities with insects, which creates a natural dissonance between the aliens and humans. Facehuggers implanting eggs is also inspired by real-life bugs that do the same thing in nature. Awful! The insect similarities even go down to the aliens having a queen. And the queen design is just as perfect as the Xenomorph itself. The alien queen partially became such a popular sci-fi trope because of Alien. And the Alien franchise probably still is the definitive one. So we have a creature where each phase of its life cycle is just as iconic. It is one of the greatest creature designs ever. So what's the problem with it? The problem is that they stopped trying. We need to remember that the Alien franchise is a universe that logically has hundreds of different species and races in it, but the Xenomorph is the only creature in any of these movies that got any focus. Well, sort of, but we'll get to you in a minute. This has had the negative effect of reducing the universe down to one creature. Every other sci-fi franchise that involves aliens has a massive variety of creatures. Star Wars, Star Trek, Starship Troopers, even random things like Pitch Black have multiple alien species. So why did one of the most famous sci-fi franchises stop trying after the first Alien? Some people would argue that this franchise doesn't need to expand past the Xenomorph, that they created a creature so inherently interesting that they would never need to expand on it, but I disagree. At the time of writing, there are 7 feature-length films featuring some variation of the Xenomorph. We have hundreds of comics, plenty of video games, and plenty of toys. No matter how good one design is, at some point it's going to get boring. But there's a wrinkle to this creature. Because you see, there are plenty of aliens in this franchise. But they're just variations of this design. Basically in universe, anything the facehugger attaches to will take the DNA of its host. So the classic Xenomorph we're all used to is the human Xenomorph. The thing looks really different if it takes the DNA of, say, a gorilla, crab, or a certain alien we'll get to later. Not just that, but the Xenomorphs have specific roles at times. Sometimes there's a hierarchy between the aliens. There are simply stronger variations than others. My personal favorite being one called Razor Claws. But you see the problem, right? None of them really venture too far away from this template, because you have to recognize it as a Xenomorph at the end of the day. This means the diversity of creatures in this franchise is non-existent. There's very little room to work in any new ideas. And we have the big white guys in Prometheus, who are proto-versions of people or whatever. I don't think I'm offending anyone when I say this isn't a very interesting alien design. I guess there's that little wiener in Prometheus. No, I respect Prometheus for trying, but I think expanding this universe is going to take a little more effort than adding a marshmallow man and a wiener snake. Because outside of the Prometheus guys, we have very little to work with in this universe. We have humans, androids, xenomorphs, and predators, I guess. Oh, sorry, the Yautja. The predators are absolutely canon to this universe, and at first this was really cool, because you could see a predator skull in the second movie, and then they fought each other, and there were a ton of cool games that had Alien vs. Predator. Except Requiem. You couldn't see anything. Like, why did they make this? I think this choice has hurt both franchises. If they introduce a secondary creature into either of these franchises, it's never gonna be as cool. You think we would have had a film about a predator going around and hunting all kinds of alien races at this point, but to this day, that hasn't happened in any major release. I'm sure some comic did that, but who cares? The predator is forced to either hunt humans or hunt xenomorphs, and other aliens play a role either completely insignificant or completely forgettable. I do understand the hesitation to add new creatures. Designers know there's a massive legacy to live up to. No one wants to add their alien OC only for it to feel completely out of place. But my argument is that it's well worth trying. You can put the Xenomorph next to most other insectoid sci-fi aliens and it fits right in, and I think there's a lot of value in adding multiple races, because there's so much unexplored territory in this universe. In Alien, there was one alien. In Aliens, there was multiple aliens, and a queen. You can't go up from there. So they didn't try. They said, there's one again, but it's based on a dog this time. Then in Resurrection, it's some weird alien-human hybrid. Then we got the first-ish Xenomorph, then we got one alien again. Now we have android, alien, and human triple hybrids? What? And through these films, you can start to see the desperation. Sure, they could keep going in that direction. I'm sure they could do cyborg aliens, genetically modified aliens, maybe a space zoo that has aliens taking on different animals. Please don't show a giraffe alien. But it's not sustainable like this. After Aliens, everyone working on this franchise knew that was pretty much the limit. The comics went in a different direction. They said, what if there was a bigger alien queen? What if there was a king? But it's just the alien queen again, but less cool. It's just a bigger version of what came before. It's not really new. Then you start to think of the possibilities when you add other aliens into the mix. What environment do Xenomorphs normally live in? What does a planet look like that can handle Xenomorphs in its ecosystem? What does the natural predator of a Xenomorph look like? What if there was a disease that killed Xenomorphs? Or worse, what if it caused them to be more monstrous? What if another alien race could control them? Imagine a rival species to the Xenomorph, one just as bad but equally hateful of humans. There is so much you could do with these creatures, but they don't really do any of it. The closest thing to a predator they have is the Predator, but that fight tends to go even without their space weapons. Any attempt to add creatures into this universe has been infrequent or unsuccessful. And if you want to see just what we're missing out on, just look at Contra or Metroid. Both of those franchises were very inspired by the Alien films. And using a Xenomorph as a template, look at the worlds they were able to create, especially in Metroid's case. Metroid didn't stop at the Metroids, not even at the Metroid Queen. There are massive and diverse evolutions Metroids can have. Just compare the variation in Metroids to the variation in Xenomorphs. And in spite of being called the Metroid franchise, there are tons of varied and interesting creatures. Crocomire, Ridley, Kraid, Chorizo, Nightmare, Mother Brain, and so much more. They let themselves expand their sci-fi universe, and they gave us things like Phantoon. Phantoon's an alien ghost. That's such a cool concept. I think I've seen that like twice ever. Unless you count Star Wars, but that's kind of cheating. Metroid is what the Alien franchise could be if they let themselves play around in the universe. We can only get so much out of Xenomorphs. It's a great design, but it can only do so much by itself, and I hope this changes. You don't have to go very far to see the endless imagination people have for weird aliens. I know we're afraid to go against an H.R. Geiger design, and I'm sure some corporate interference is at play to keep new species from coming in, but it's worth it to bring some new blood into this universe. That way we can solve the Xenomorph problem. Because this franchise is definitely here to stay.